The phone buzzed in Olivia's hand, a sleek black screen illuminating the darkened room. She stared at it, her heart suddenly in her throat. It was a simple message, an invitation to a gala hosted by Jacob's company. But the words beneath the pristine gold lettering caused her breath to catch, her fingers trembling. Olivia, join us for an unforgettable evening. Let's celebrate our success and build the future together. Jacob. The words felt hollow, like they were written by someone else, someone who wasn't her husband. She couldn't explain it, but something was off. It was supposed to be an ordinary evening, a celebration of his company's latest achievements. Yet, it felt like the calm before a storm. Olivia had spent years with Jacob. Their lives, their marriage, everything seemed so perfect. But what did she truly know about him? What did she know about the man who had promised her the world? Her phone buzzed again, pulling her out of her thoughts. A new notification popped up. It was a photo, sent from an unknown number. She opened it instinctively, her mind racing, but what she saw made the world tilt beneath her feet. It was a selfie. A smiling woman with dark hair. Olivia's stomach twisted as she saw the caption. Can't wait for tonight. See you soon, Jacob. She stared at the photo in disbelief. The woman in the picture wasn't just any stranger. That face was Lauren, his coworker. Her heart skipped a beat, and she felt the ground beneath her feet suddenly feel too soft, like it was crumbling. This couldn't be real. It had to be a mistake, right? Her mind raced. Could Jacob be having an affair? Was this what he had been hiding? All those late nights at the office, the sudden business trips, the unexplained absences, had it all been for her? Had he been seeing Lauren all along? Before Olivia could digest what she was seeing, another message popped up, this time from Lauren herself. It was a simple line of text. Looking forward to seeing you at the gala tonight. I hope Jacob likes the surprise we have planned for him. The weight of the words hit Olivia like a freight train. Surprise. It was the word she'd never thought would come up in her marriage, at least, not in the way it was unfolding now. Her breath caught. 1,000 thoughts collided in her mind, betrayal, confusion, anger. How could he? How could Jacob, the man she had trusted more than anyone, do this to her? And why didn't she see it coming? Her chest tightened, and she fought back the wave of panic threatening to swallow her whole. Tonight. The gala. It wasn't just a celebration anymore. It had turned into a nightmare waiting to unfold. Olivia knew one thing for sure, the woman who walked into that gala tonight would not be the same person who had opened that invitation. Olivia couldn't sleep. Her mind raced through 1,000 different scenarios. Each one darker than the last. She sat in front of her vanity mirror, staring at her reflection. The elegant dress she had picked for the evening felt heavy on her, almost like a costume. She had always loved these galas, the chance to dress up, to show the world a flawless image of the life she and Jacob had built. But tonight? Tonight, it felt like a performance she had no desire to play. Her hands shook slightly as she applied her makeup. Each stroke of the brush felt mechanical. She wasn't just getting ready for a gala, she was preparing herself for war. As she finished getting dressed, the weight of what was about to unfold settled on her shoulders. She had to confront Jacob. She had to find out the truth. But most importantly, she had to be ready for whatever came next. Jacob had no idea what was waiting for him tonight. The ballroom was full of laughter and chatter, the clink of glasses, the shine of expensive suits, and the flutter of designer dresses. The company's annual gala was always a grand event, one where the elite of the business world gathered to celebrate, network, and, as Olivia had learned tonight, keep their secrets buried under layers of champagne and smiles. Jacob, standing tall in a sharp tuxedo, looked every bit the successful businessman he was. He greeted colleagues with his usual charm, his eyes flickering briefly over the crowd, but when they landed on Olivia, they seemed to soften. "Olivia, you look stunning as always," he said, his voice warm but distant. She smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you," she replied, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions threatening to overwhelm her. Jacob was about to say something else when Olivia's gaze drifted over his shoulder. There, in the crowd, stood Lauren, her bright red dress standing out among the sea of black and silver. Lauren met Olivia's eyes, and the briefest flicker of recognition passed between them. It was as if time had slowed. Olivia felt her breath catch, her mind spiraling. Lauren was close to Jacob. Too close. And it wasn't just professional. Olivia couldn't wait any longer. She excused herself from the conversation with Jacob, offering a vague excuse about needing to freshen up. She knew exactly where she was headed, toward Lauren. As she moved through the crowd, her mind raced. What was she going to say? How was she going to approach the woman who was not just the other woman in her marriage, but the one Jacob had chosen? When Olivia reached her, Lauren was laughing with a group of people, her hand casually resting on Jacob's arm. The sight made Olivia's blood boil, but she kept her composure, forcing a polite smile as she stepped closer. "Lauren," Olivia said, her voice cool. "Can I have a word?" Lauren looked surprised, but the surprise quickly turned to a forced smile. "Of course, Olivia. What's on your mind?" Olivia's eyes narrowed slightly. "I think you know exactly what's on my mind." The smile on Lauren's face faltered just for a moment, but it was enough. Olivia saw the guilt flash across her face, and that small flicker of doubt was all she needed. "Jacob has a lot of explaining to do," Olivia continued, her voice steady, but the fury beneath the surface was unmistakable. Lauren hesitated, then took a step back. "I'm not sure what you mean," she said, but there was a nervous edge to her tone. Olivia didn't back down. "I think you do," she said, her eyes piercing into Lauren's. Before Lauren could say anything else, Olivia turned on her heel and walked away, her heart pounding in her chest. She had confronted the woman who had been tearing apart her marriage, and yet, the confrontation felt incomplete. The truth was still out there, and she would find it, no matter what. Later that night, after the gala had wound down and most of the guests had left, Olivia found herself alone in the quiet, dimly lit hotel suite where the company had booked for Jacob and her. Her eyes were red-rimmed from holding back tears all evening, but the fire in her chest hadn't dulled. She was done being the passive wife, done pretending everything was fine. She needed answers. Jacob entered the room just as Olivia was standing near the window, staring out into the night sky. He paused when he saw her, his expression unreadable. "Olivia, what's going on?" he asked, his voice softer than usual. "You've been distant all night. I thought we were having a good time." Olivia turned to face him, her gaze hardening. "A good time? Is that what you think we're having, Jacob? A good time?" He looked taken aback. "What are you talking about?" Olivia stepped closer, her voice cold. "I know about you and Lauren," she said, watching as his face paled. "I know everything." Jacob's expression faltered for a moment, but then he recovered, his eyes narrowing. "You don't know what you're talking about." The word stung, but Olivia wasn't backing down now. "I know everything, Jacob. The photos. The messages. The lies. I know that you've been having an affair with her for months. And I know that your mother's been helping you keep it all a secret." Jacob's face twisted with frustration. "Olivia, you don't understand. It's not what you think. This is all about—" "No," Olivia interrupted, her voice rising. "This is about you lying to me. This is about you betraying me." The silence stretched between them like an unbearable weight. Finally, Jacob spoke, his voice low, almost pleading. "Olivia, I never wanted to hurt you. But—" "No," she cut him off again, her voice sharp. "You never wanted to hurt me. You've been lying to my face for months, and you think you didn't hurt me? This isn't about what you want, Jacob. This is about what I deserve." Jacob opened his mouth to speak, but Olivia didn't let him. She had had enough. "Get out," she said, her voice firm and final. "Just leave. I can't do this anymore." Jacob stood frozen for a moment, and then, without another word, he turned and left the room. Olivia stood there, alone, her chest rising and falling with the weight of what had just happened. But in that moment, she knew something had changed. She wasn't the woman who had been lied to for months anymore. She was the woman who was about to take control. Olivia spent the next few days gathering her thoughts, making plans, and most importantly, preparing for what came next. The truth was now out, but it wasn't enough for her to simply walk away. She needed to take back her life, to rebuild everything that had been taken from her. She had a plan. It wasn't just about getting a divorce. It was about making sure Jacob, Sylvia, and Lauren understood that their actions had consequences. They wouldn't get away with this. And she would make sure the world knew the truth. The days following the gala were a blur. Olivia spent hours in her apartment, researching, planning, and preparing for the inevitable storm that was about to unfold. She had seen what Jacob and Sylvia were capable of. She couldn't trust them anymore, not even for a second. This was no longer about saving her marriage. It was about holding them accountable for everything they had done to her. Every night, she pored over documents, correspondence, and financial records. It was slow, methodical work, but every piece she uncovered seemed to confirm what she already suspected: Jacob and Sylvia had been scheming behind her back for months, even years. Olivia didn't want to think about the personal side of it. She didn't want to imagine how Jacob's betrayal had shattered her heart, how Lauren had wormed her way into their lives with the full knowledge and approval of Sylvia. Instead, she focused on the facts, the cold, hard facts. And with each document, each new revelation, she felt more in control. She hired a private investigator to track Jacob's financial activities, and soon enough, the investigator uncovered something far more damaging than Olivia had anticipated. It wasn't just that Jacob had been embezzling money from the company to fund his affair. No, the financial misdeeds went much deeper. Sylvia had been using company assets to build a secret portfolio of properties, all in her name, hiding them from the board of directors and, most importantly, Olivia. This was the final piece of the puzzle. Sylvia's goal wasn't just to keep Olivia out of the company, it was to make sure she never had a stake in it. With this information in hand, Olivia's plan started to take shape. She wasn't going to just leave Jacob. She was going to expose everything. All the lies. All the fraud. All the deception. And she was going to do it in front of everyone who had ever trusted the Grant family. But Olivia knew she needed help. She couldn't do this alone. The week before the big company gala, Olivia reached out to Lisa, her sister, who had been supportive but unaware of the depths of the betrayal Olivia had been facing. Lisa was a financial expert, and Olivia knew she would be able to help her decipher the complex financial documents she had gathered. They met at a cafe downtown, away from the watchful eyes of the Grant family. Olivia could feel the tension in the air, but she tried to keep her composure. She couldn't let fear show now, not when she was this close to bringing everything to light. "Olivia, I had no idea things had gone this far," Lisa said, her voice low as she scanned the documents Olivia had laid out on the table. "You were right to bring this to me. This is huge." Olivia nodded, her heart racing as she leaned in. "I need you to help me put everything together. I have the pieces, but I need to make sure everything is airtight. This isn't just about me. It's about the company, about exposing the corruption Sylvia's been covering up for years." Lisa took a deep breath, clearly grasping the magnitude of what they were dealing with. "I can do this. But it's going to take time, and we need to be careful. If this gets out too soon, if Sylvia or Jacob find out we're onto them, it could blow up in ways we don't expect." Olivia was already 2 steps ahead. "I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. We'll move quietly. But when we expose them, it'll be public. I want the world to know what they've done." As Olivia and Lisa worked tirelessly behind the scenes, things began to shift in unexpected ways. The tension in Olivia's life seemed to amplify with each passing day. Jacob was being unusually attentive, perhaps sensing her distance, but Olivia refused to let herself be swayed by his charm. His apologies and his promises were nothing but empty words. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was a call from one of the board members of the company, someone Olivia hadn't spoken to in months. His voice was tense as he spoke. "Olivia, I don't know how to say this, but I think you need to be careful. There's been talk. Sylvia's been talking to the press. She's trying to get ahead of something, and I think she's planning to paint you as the one who's been sabotaging the company." Olivia felt her stomach drop. Sylvia was already making moves to manipulate the narrative, to shift the blame onto her. It was classic Sylvia, always trying to control the situation, always trying to stay one step ahead. She thanked the board member and hung up the phone, her mind racing. The last thing Sylvia wanted was for Olivia to expose everything. But Olivia wasn't going to back down. Sylvia may have been trying to control the narrative, but Olivia was about to flip the script entirely. The night of the gala finally arrived, and Olivia was ready. She slipped into the elegant black dress she had chosen weeks ago, the one that made her feel powerful. The same dress she had worn at the beginning of her marriage to Jacob, the one she had hoped would symbolize her role as his equal partner. But now, it felt like armor, a suit of strength, a reminder of everything she had fought for and everything she was about to expose. The gala was being held at one of the most prestigious venues in the city. As she entered, the lavish decorations, the glimmer of chandeliers, and the hum of excited chatter only served to highlight the divide between the superficial world around her and the dark truth she was about to reveal. Olivia spotted Jacob immediately, standing with Sylvia and Lauren at the far side of the room. They were laughing, their faces lit up in ways that felt fake to her. Jacob's arm was draped around Lauren's waist, and Sylvia was standing proudly by his side, as if nothing was wrong. But Olivia knew better. She knew what was coming. She caught Lisa's eye from across the room, and Lisa gave her a subtle nod. Everything was in place. The moment she had been planning for weeks had arrived. Olivia walked across the room toward the podium, where the evening speeches were about to begin. She could feel the eyes of the room on her as she passed by, the whispers starting to rise. She reached the microphone, and just as Sylvia began her speech about family values and business integrity, Olivia interrupted. "Before we continue," Olivia said, her voice steady but full of conviction. "There's something you all need to know about the so-called integrity of the Grant family." The room fell silent, every eye turning toward her. Jacob's face went pale, and Sylvia's smile faltered. Olivia didn't wait for them to react. She played the first recording, of Sylvia, in her own voice, admitting to embezzling funds. The room gasped as the truth filled the air. She didn't stop there. Olivia revealed the financial documents, the illegal transactions, and the web of lies Sylvia had spun. And finally, she exposed Jacob for what he truly was, an active participant in the fraud and the affair. The shock was palpable. No one knew what to say. But Olivia wasn't done. "Now you know who these people really are," she said, her voice louder now, commanding attention. "And now you'll know the truth." The room was deafeningly quiet. Olivia stood at the podium, the weight of her words still hanging in the air. She had just exposed the truth, and now, the once celebratory atmosphere of the gala had turned into a battlefield. The stunned silence felt like it had lasted an eternity. Jacob's face was drained of color, his hands trembling slightly at his sides. Sylvia, the woman who had carefully crafted her empire, looked utterly undone for the first time in Olivia's memory. Lauren, standing off to the side, had an expression of shock that quickly morphed into a defensive scowl. "Olivia, you," Jacob started, his voice barely a whisper. She didn't let him finish. "You lied, Jacob. You manipulated everyone, including me. Her voice rang clear across the room. And you, Sylvia, have been using your own son, your own company, and your own family for your own gain. The crowd was still frozen, unsure of what to do, their gazes darting from one person to the next, searching for some explanation. Olivia didn't give them one. She didn't need to. The truth was out, and it would stand on its own. The fallout was swift. Over the next few days, Olivia watched as her world, once filled with luxury and false promises, unraveled. Jacob had tried to reach out, his calls escalating from pleading to frantic, but Olivia ignored them. She had nothing left to say to him. Sylvia, ever the strategist, tried to salvage what remained of her reputation, but it was too late. The media picked up on the scandal quickly. Every headline seemed to pile more dirt on the Grant family. Fraud. Affairs. Embezzlement. The names of family friends, business partners, and high-profile investors began to surface, their relationships with the Grants questioned. The company was in freefall, with board members demanding answers and threatening legal action. Olivia knew it wouldn't take long for the investors to pull out. And once they did, the empire Jacob and Sylvia had built would crumble. Olivia couldn't bring herself to feel pity. She had given Jacob every opportunity to come clean, to fix things. But he had chosen to stay in the shadows, hiding behind Sylvia's manipulations. Now, he was paying the price. They all were. The next step in Olivia's plan was already set in motion. She met with her lawyer to discuss the next steps. Her goal wasn't just to walk away from the marriage with her dignity intact. She was going after everything she was entitled to, property, assets, and the compensation she deserved for the years of manipulation and deceit. Olivia, this is a mess, her lawyer, Michael, said as he flipped through the financial documents they had gathered. But we've got an airtight case here. Sylvia's financial dealings are questionable at best, and with what you've got, we'll go after her company as well. Olivia nodded. This is about justice, Michael. It's not just the money. It's about holding them accountable. Michael raised an eyebrow. Are you sure you want to go this far? It's going to get ugly. The public will know everything. I've already exposed them to the public, she said, her voice hard. This is just the next step. Her mind was set. She wasn't going to let Jacob and Sylvia get away with it. She wasn't going to be the victim anymore. As the days passed, Olivia found herself slowly starting to rebuild. She had already started making plans for her next move, focusing on her career and her future. While the legal battles raged on, she began working with a financial advisor to get her own affairs in order. She wasn't going to rely on anyone again, not even herself in the form of her old life. But the pressure was relentless. Every time she turned on the television, there was a new report about the Grant family scandal. Business partners were pulling out, employees were leaving the company, and the once pristine reputation of Jacob's business empire was quickly becoming a joke. Olivia knew she had done the right thing, but the chaos still weighed heavily on her. One day, as she sat in her office, reviewing some documents, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Lisa. Olivia, they're trying to settle. Jacob's ready to sign the divorce papers if you drop the lawsuit against Sylvia. Olivia stared at the screen for a moment, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She'd expected something like this. Jacob would try to buy his way out. He was too proud to face the full consequences of his actions. She typed back quickly. Tell him it's too late for that. We're going to court. Olivia knew what she had to do. She wasn't going to let Jacob use his wealth to silence her, to escape the mess he had created. He could no longer hide behind his mother's schemes. The day of the court hearing arrived. Olivia stood at the front of the courtroom, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over her. She was surrounded by her lawyer, the evidence they had painstakingly gathered, and the support of those who had believed in her. Jacob and Sylvia were there too, sitting across from her with their high-powered attorneys. Sylvia sat rigidly, her eyes narrowed, as if she were still trying to find a way to wiggle out of the mess she had created. Jacob, on the other hand, looked defeated. His shoulders were slumped, his once confident demeanor gone. Olivia didn't feel sorry for him. Not anymore. The proceedings began, and the evidence began to unfold, testimonies about the fraudulent transactions, recordings of conversations between Jacob and Sylvia, financial documents, and more. With each passing hour, Olivia felt the weight of the past months lifting from her shoulders. She had been right to expose them. She had been right to take control of her life again. As the trial went on, Olivia could feel the eyes of the courtroom on her, the weight of the truth settling in. Jacob and Sylvia's defenses crumbled under the sheer weight of the evidence. There was no more room for lies, no more room for manipulation. In the end, the judge ruled in Olivia's favor. She would receive a fair divorce settlement, compensation for the years of financial fraud, and an official apology from both Jacob and Sylvia. The months that followed the trial were a blur of change. Olivia used the settlement to start fresh, investing in her own business and building a new life from the ground up. She had learned so much during the course of her ordeal, not just about Jacob and Sylvia, but about herself. She didn't need anyone's approval anymore. She had her own strength, her own drive, and the knowledge that she could overcome anything. One afternoon, while sitting in her new office, overlooking the skyline of the city she had once shared with Jacob, Olivia received a call. It was from a potential investor who had heard about her success after the trial. As she hung up the phone, she smiled to herself. The woman who had once been lost in a web of lies had found herself again. And this time, no one would ever take that away from her. It had been 6 months since the trial. Olivia sat at her desk, the soft hum of her laptop filling the otherwise quiet office. The once sterile workspace now reflected her transformation. Books on entrepreneurship, articles on building a business, and plans for a new marketing strategy were spread out on her desk. The walls, once bare and cold, were adorned with photos of her journey, family, friends, and the hard-won moments that had led to this new life. She had done it. She had turned the page. But even with all her accomplishments, Olivia couldn't quite shake the weight of the past. Every so often, it would sneak up on her, memories of betrayal, the echo of lies she had once lived under. But those thoughts were now fleeting. She had moved on, and the life she was building was hers to shape. Her phone buzzed, snapping her back to the present. It was a message from Lisa. I heard back from the investors. They want to meet in person next week. You've got this, sis. Olivia smiled, her heart swelling with pride. She hadn't been sure at first if taking the plunge into entrepreneurship was the right choice. But now, with each new deal, each new step forward, she felt her confidence growing. Thanks, Lisa, she typed back. Let's do this. It was a week later when Olivia walked into the sleek, glass-walled conference room in downtown Los Angeles. The investor meeting was an important milestone, her first big step into the world of business after everything she had gone through. She knew how much this opportunity could change things, not just for her, but for the future she was building. The room was filled with sharp-dressed men and women, all with eyes on her as she stepped up to the front. She held her ground, feeling the nerves from earlier start to settle as she took a deep breath. The last time she had been in a high-stakes situation like this, it had been a courtroom, not a business meeting. But now, she felt more in control than ever. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today, Olivia began, her voice steady but filled with conviction. I've spent years working in marketing, developing strategies that drive results, but more importantly, I've learned how to navigate challenges and turn adversity into an advantage. The investors exchanged glances, and Olivia could feel their attention on her. She continued, laying out her vision for the new business venture she was building. She was confident in her idea, the same idea that had fueled her decision to leave behind the life she had known. By the end of the presentation, she could see their interest. They weren't just impressed by her plan, they were intrigued by her story. The story of a woman who had faced the ultimate betrayal and emerged stronger, more focused, and ready to take on the world. One of the investors, a woman in her early 40s with short brown hair and a sharp suit, spoke up. "Olivia, your story is inspiring. And your business plan is exactly what we've been looking for. We believe in you, and we'd like to move forward with this." Olivia's heart skipped a beat. It was happening. She had made it. "Thank you," Olivia said, her voice full of gratitude. "This means more to me than you can imagine." As the meeting ended, Olivia stepped out of the conference room, her head held high. This was only the beginning. Though she had won in so many ways, there were still moments when Olivia felt like the past was pulling at her. She hadn't seen Jacob or Sylvia since the trial. Their attempts to reach out had all been blocked. Olivia didn't need to hear their apologies. What she needed was to keep moving forward. But sometimes, it wasn't just the memories that haunted her, it was the empty spaces left by those who had once been close. There were no more dinners with Jacob, no more visits to Sylvia's house, no more pretending that everything was fine when it wasn't. One night, after a long day of meetings, Olivia found herself alone in her apartment, sipping tea as the rain pattered against the windows. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was an email from her lawyer, Michael. "Olivia, I wanted to inform you that there's been a settlement offer from Jacob. He's willing to pay you a substantial amount if you agree to drop the remaining charges against Sylvia." She stared at the screen for a long moment. Jacob. Always trying to buy his way out of things. She had no doubt that he was still trying to fix his image, still trying to salvage what was left of his family's empire. But Olivia knew better now. She wasn't going to let them get away with this. Not anymore. She immediately hit reply. "I'm not interested in any settlements. I've already moved on." It felt good. She didn't need their money. She didn't need their apology. She had everything she needed already. The loneliness that had once consumed Olivia began to ease as time went on. She spent more time with Lisa, who had become not just a sister, but her closest ally. Together, they built not just a business, but a support system. Lisa had been there for her through everything, the fallout, the public trials, the emotional roller coaster. Now, she was there for her as she climbed her way to the top, brick by brick. One weekend, they took a trip out of town to a small beach house for a well-deserved break. As they sat on the porch, overlooking the ocean, Olivia let out a deep sigh, feeling the weight of the past lift off her shoulders. "I can't believe how far we've come," Lisa said, her voice soft. "From where we started, to now, you've done it, Olivia." Olivia smiled, gazing out at the horizon. "I couldn't have done it without you. You believed in me when no one else did." Lisa laughed. "I always believed in you." For the first time in a long time, Olivia allowed herself to relax. She was creating the life she wanted, free from the constraints of the past. She was no longer defined by her marriage or the mistakes of the people she once loved. She was her own person, and the future was wide open. She knew there would still be challenges ahead. There always were. But she was stronger now, wiser, and more prepared to face whatever came next. She had learned one crucial lesson through it all, that the past didn't define her. She defined her future. As the months went by, Olivia's business was starting to thrive. She had secured a few big accounts and her reputation as a savvy, strategic businesswoman was growing. But success came with its own set of challenges. The pressure to maintain momentum was heavy. She worked late nights, analyzing data, meeting with clients, and refining her strategies. It was a grind, but for the first time in her life, Olivia felt in control. She was making the decisions, calling the shots, and building something that was entirely her own. One afternoon, as she sat in her office, her phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hesitating for a moment, she answered. "Hello." Olivia's voice was steady, though her heart skipped a beat, unsure of who it might be. "Olivia, it's Robert Jenkins," the voice on the other end said. I'm with the firm that's handling your ex-husband's remaining legal affairs. We need to talk. Olivia felt a jolt of unease. Robert Jenkins. The same attorney who had represented Jacob throughout the divorce proceedings. She had hoped that chapter of her life was closed for good. What is this about? She asked, keeping her tone neutral. It's about a settlement offer, Robert continued. Jacob wants to make amends. He's proposing a significant amount to you in exchange for dropping any remaining claims against the family. Olivia couldn't suppress the laugh that escaped her lips. A settlement? After everything they've done? They think they can buy their way out of this, she said, incredulity in her voice. There was a pause on the line before Robert responded. I understand your position, but Jacob is under a lot of pressure. The family's legacy is at stake. His legacy? Olivia scoffed. What about my legacy, Robert? What about the years of my life they took? Olivia, I know you're angry, but this is your chance to walk away with what you're owed. You've won the case. You don't need to fight anymore. Take the money, and move on. Olivia's mind raced, the weight of the situation sinking in. This wasn't just about money. She had made it clear from the beginning that she didn't need their charity. She had worked hard for everything she had, and now, she was faced with the possibility of walking away from it all, or forcing the family to face the consequences of their actions. No deal, she said, her voice calm but firm. Tell Jacob I'm not interested. The following weeks were intense. The legal battles were dragging on longer than Olivia had anticipated. Jacob's team continued to push for a settlement, but Olivia stood firm. She wasn't going to let him get away with the damage he'd caused. Not when she was this close to ending the chapter for good. In the midst of all the chaos, Olivia started to feel the pressure building. Late nights at the office, the ongoing stress from the legal disputes, and the emotional toll it was taking on her began to weigh heavily. She was exhausted, physically and mentally. One night, after a particularly grueling day of meetings, Olivia went for a walk to clear her mind. As she strolled through the quiet streets of the city, her thoughts drifted back to everything she had been through. She remembered the woman she used to be, unsure, constantly doubting herself, letting others control her life. And then she remembered the woman she had become, the woman who had fought for what she deserved and was finally building her own future. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Lisa. You okay? I haven't heard from you in a while. Don't burn yourself out. Olivia sighed, staring down at the message. Lisa had been there through it all, never judging, always supportive. Olivia tapped out a quick response. I'm fine, just, a lot going on. I'll be okay. I just need to finish this. But the truth was, Olivia wasn't sure she could keep up the pace. The business was thriving, yes, but she was running on empty. She had always been driven, but now, she realized, she needed to allow herself time to breathe, to step back from the fire for just a moment. As the legal disputes wound down and the final settlement talks came to an end, Olivia started to shift her focus. No longer consumed by the weight of her past, she turned her attention to the future, her business, her well-being, and her own personal happiness. It wasn't easy. Letting go of the past took time. But Olivia learned something invaluable through the entire process. She didn't have to do everything alone. She could lean on the people who cared about her. And she could finally start healing. A few weeks later, Olivia found herself in a cafe across from Lisa, sharing a quiet lunch. The sun was shining through the windows, and for the first time in a long while, Olivia felt at peace. You're doing great, Liv, Lisa said, smiling across the table. I know it's been hard, but look at you. You've built something amazing. Olivia smiled back, feeling the weight lift from her shoulders. I couldn't have done it without you. Lisa raised her glass. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, Olivia repeated, clinking her glass gently against her sister's. It wasn't just about business anymore. It wasn't about the company or the legacy that Jacob and Sylvia tried to take from her. It was about building something real, something true. Something she could call her own. The final settlement came through, and while Olivia didn't need the money, it was a symbol. A symbol of her victory. She had fought for what was hers, not just the assets, but her dignity, her future. Jacob had tried one last time to make amends. Sylvia had attempted to weave her way back into the narrative. But Olivia was done. She had moved on, and the life she was creating was hers, with no strings attached to her past. One day, as she sat in her new office, gazing out over the city skyline, Olivia realized something. Her true victory wasn't just the settlements or the legal wins. It wasn't the business she had built or the success she had found. It was the person she had become, the woman who refused to be silenced, who learned to rise from the ashes and forge a path of her own. She didn't need their approval. She didn't need their validation. Olivia had finally learned that the most important thing was not what others thought of her, but what she thought of herself. And that, in itself, was the greatest triumph.